G'day, welcome to Unchained Thinker. I'm Justin. In my past videos, I've talked about predominantly about health and how the current medical system, or at least the Western medical system, is kind of an inversion of actual health in terms of their advice and theories and so on. Also, if you watched my Devil is in the Details video, I alluded to how just about everything in our current realm of existence is an inversion of reality. Which leads me to one of my favourite subjects, and this is going to be hard if you've never heard this to sort of wrap your head around. If you're a closed-minded individual, you'll probably just you're probably not even watching my channel, to be honest, but you'll probably turn off this video pretty quickly. But there is something about our objective reality that is right in front of our eyes, and most people don't see it. And I was one of those people for 27 years of my life. And yeah, about 5 years ago, I discovered the truth. And I can't, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's incredibly blindingly obvious. But there's still people that fervently deny it and ridicule it and so on, which it just astounds me, because once it sort of came into my field of view, I thought, no, surely not, and entertained that thought enough to try to satisfy my curiosity as to whether it was legitimate or not. And once I'd sunk my teeth into that was it. I think it's big part of the in order to get people's beliefs in check and control people the way they do. I think this is one of the biggest ways they could have done that. So what is it that I'm talking about? Well, I'm sure some of you have heard this term before, and you think of the absolute lunacy of people like me that make this claim, but the Earth is not a spinning ball. And cue the trolls. Why do I know that the Earth is not a spinning ball? Because it's not a belief system. I don't believe that the Earth is a stationary plane. It's more like I know that the Earth is a stationary plane, much like I know that I'm speaking English right now. Do I know every single grammatical thing about the English language, and do I know every single word that has ever been created in English? No, but I know that I can communicate with people in English very well. So the level that I know that it's a stationary flat plane is consistent with that. It's not a belief system. It's not something that I have faith in. I just know it. And how do I know it? Well, I use my eyes. I use simple logic and reasoning, and I use science. I know, cue the trolls, because people that are supposedly a flat earther are supposedly anti-science, which just amuses me, because anyone that's truly come to the realisation that the Earth is a stationary plane probably does more science than anybody else. The rest is scientism, and scientism is pseudoscience. It's science that you have to believe in, but you can't replicate or test for yourself. So anyone that's a true globe denier does experiments constantly and tries to prove their hypothesis or disprove it. Most people start out trying to debunk the claim that the Earth is not a spinning ball. And that's how they come to the realisation that the only logical answer is that it's true. Anyway, let me get to some of the questions as to why I believe... why I know that we don't live on a spinning ball. Firstly, there's no curvature. Not a little tiny bit of curvature anywhere can be measured. We can see things that are ridiculously far. It's phenomenal. Like I think the longest landmass photo, the longest photo on Earth was something like 443 kilometers, which is, if you go and run an Earth calculator curvature calculator, you'll need to have a curvature of 15 kilometers. So there's no way you can marry up those distances. And the place where it was, I think I only had a quick look because, like my Devils in the Details video, I already know, so I don't need to just keep searching and filtering through. I just need to go, oh wow, that's interesting, and then move on to figure out, why they're lying about that, what they're trying to hide, and so on. Excuse me for one moment. Sorry about that. So I don't like to dwell in it too much because I already know the answer. So at this point, I've seen so much that it's beyond, like, oh, is this the thing that debunks the whole? Because there is no debunking something that is undeniably true. And it's not a debate. In one of my past videos, I talked about how you would debate about why you think something should be. You can't. There's no debate when it's you're dealing with objectivity. So if I were to donk someone's on the head with a rock, we both know that's going to hurt them because it's a hard rock. There's no debating about that. There's no like, but is it a hard rock? It's just, it's objective. Bang, that hurts. That's a hard rock. It land on your head. So when you're dealing with the objective reality, it's not a debate. It's just some people just don't follow logic and reasoning enough. So anyway, curvature. There's 15 kilometers of missing curvature on this ridiculously large photo, and you go, oh, but it was probably it was a picture of a mountain, and you can see a lot of the mountain, by the way. So it's not like you're only just catching the top of the mountain. And even if you're on the highest mountain that you can think of, I think Mt Everest is only 5,000 or 6,000 meters. 5 or 6 kilometers high. So I think I worked out, even if you took the two peaks, you would still be missing 4 kilometers of curvature. But like I said, it actually shows the whole mountain. Anyway, you can research that yourself. So there's no curvature. I personally view, kilometers and kilometers and kilometers and kilometers, all the time. And everywhere I look, the horizon is flat and level. There's no curving at the edges or anything like that. And people say, oh, but you're just too small. The globe's so big, you just can't see it. It's like, well, yeah, okay, you use that argument on one hand, and then on the other hand, you use the argument of ships going over the horizon. Oh, you see them disappear from the bottom up. That's proof of the curve. It's like, well, if I can see curve that way, just in a few kilometers, then I should see it in the horizon line, dipping at the edges. And before you think, see, the ships curve over the horizon, every time, if you go and view a ship disappearing over the horizon and disappearing from the bottom up, and you're going to use that as proof of curvature, go and get yourself a high-powered zoom camera or a pair of binoculars, and that whole thing will come in to view, mast and all. So that's not proof of the curvature. That is proof of your limited perspective. All right. So the ceiling, the sky and the ceiling come down to your horizon line, and the everything, the floor and the sea level, it all comes up to meet at a point of convergence. All right, so it's hard to, so everything comes into this horizon line. No matter how high you go, your horizon will always remain at eye level because everything comes down and the ground comes up to meet at a converging point. And everything beyond that point of convergence is out of your field of view. Okay, so when a ship is going past this supposed curvature, it's actually just going past your horizon line, your perspective's point of convergence. And as it travels past, things that are close to the ground, the closest part to the horizon line disappears into the horizon. It doesn't disappear over the horizon, it disappears into the horizon. It's the same with the sun. The sun doesn't go down and around a globe. It just disappears into the horizon. Anyway, getting off topic, that's curvature. The other thing to do with curvature and something to do with my direct experience is flying a plane. I've flown a plane. Thank you to my brother. He bought me for my 21st a trip, like a tour on a plane, and it was like a guided tour where you fly. So I got to take off and land the thing, fly the whole time. Never ever once did I dip my nose. So if there is this globe, you would have to curve your nose around the globe, or you would fly off into supposed space. It's nonsense. No plane dips their nose. You should, again, the devil's in the details. They call it a plane, an aeroplane, or an airplane if you live in other parts of the world. Plane, not an aero globe or an aero ball. It's an aeroplane. If you go and look up, and this one's really easy, go and look up flight manuals for I think there's a heap of NASA documentation that lists it, and there's flight manuals for like military industrial complex. They have in their flight manuals that the Earth needs to be treated as a flat flat non-rotating Earth. So they have to fly as if it's a flat non-rotating Earth. Well, doesn't logic tell you that it just is a flat non-rotating Earth? It's just lunacy. So nobody has direct experience with spinning curvature, a spinning ball that has curvature. Nobody has that. People say, I've seen the curve out of their airplane windows. It's like, they've got curved windows. It's the same way that they show you this curved footage using a GoPro camera. It's nonsense. There are, again, easy to research. Go and look up high altitude balloon flights. That these things are going well over 100,000 feet or whatever they measured it in high, like kilometres high, and you just see for miles and miles and miles. And the horizon, once again, around the whole thing comes to your eye level. So if you were on a globe, it would dip away from you. As you rose up, if you had the ball, as you rose up, the horizon line would not come up with you, it would dip away from you. And it doesn't. And it's horizontal. Horizontal. All right? The devil's in the details. They tell you. It's called sea level, not sea curve, or it's just it's so obvious, so blindingly obvious. So these airplane windows that you think you see curvature out of, I hold my camera up when I go on a flight. I haven't been on a flight for a few years now, but the last time I did, I could see out both windows. I could see the horizon at my eye level, and this is at 35,000 feet or wherever they fly at. And if I put my camera up to one part of the window, I could see the curve, and when I centered it right into the center of the window and looked straight out, there was no curve. So that proves to me that it's the curvature of the window, not curvature of the Earth. So it's very misleading. Why else? There's so many. I could literally do this with people for days, and I do. People blow out when I start giving them these facts. And if you still don't believe it after doing research, then I'm sorry, but you're researching it wrong. And if you want to believe that it's a globe, that's fine, but as long as you're aware that it's a belief system. Because all I deal with is objective reality. And if I can't, people go, oh, people have been to space. Well, what people? The basically the priests of the globe. The only people who are going there are these astronauts that are all connected to Freemasonry and the Illuminati and so on. I'll cue the trolls again. He's spoken about secret societies. But again, you can research it. You can see them all wearing their Freemasonic rings in most of the photos. If you think that people have been to space, if you think we landed on the moon, come on, man. You got to work harder than that. That thing's been debunked well, it should have never gotten off the ground. But people believe it, and that's all part of this deception to fool us about who we really are and the power we really have. Anyway, where was I going with that? Yeah, so nobody has direct real-world experience with a spinning ball. They just believe it because authority figures tell them that is the case, and that's not how I operate. If you're going to tell me something and I can't verify it for myself, then it's baloney. It's baloney. So they talk about space. Well, I can't go there to prove them wrong, and that's never going to happen. And people go, "Oh, you can. You can buy a ticket." Yeah, sure you can. Yeah, no worries. Great argument. It's a non-argument. And when you look at the footage of the people that supposedly do go there, it's all nonsense. It's all either CGI or you see wires when they're on the space station. You see their wires. You see them fade out. Before they actually get out of the screen, you'll see their arm like disappear or something. The arm will just like fade off before they're actually out of shot because someone buggered up the fade out in the CGI. Because they do it all with green screens and so on. You see constantly on their supposed spacewalks, you see bubbles in space. There was an article a couple of years ago. One of the astronauts nearly died because during his spacewalk his helmet filled up with water. Like, you just can't make this stuff up. They film that stuff in big deep. They tell you, oh no, he had the water filter in there, and there was why has he got? It's just nonsense. His scuba gear, if you want to call it a spacesuit, whatever, but his scuba gear had a leak and it filled up with water from his from the tanks that they film a lot of that stuff in. Anyway, I'll get off subject. Yeah, no curvature ever. Planes don't dip their nose. I live in Australia. I guarantee I'm not upside down. If you can show me, this is easy, right? You go and get me one photo from one of these supposed satellites that can see someone in the northern hemisphere the right way up, and then pan the camera for the satellite and zoom in and show me someone in Australia being upside down. That'll settle it. That'll settle it so easily. Bang, we're done. We're back to a ball. I'm not married to flat Earth. I'm just facing the logical conclusion. But there is no photo that shows Australia upside down, but in the same shot as someone else that's the right way up, because anyone can just take a photo and invert it. But you show me a photo where you can see people on the top part of the globe standing this way up, and people on the bottom part of the globe standing upside down. Because I know I'm not upside down. I don't know about any of you, but I'm not upside down, and I'm in Australia. How do I know I'm not upside down? Compasses. If anyone knows how a compass works, you need to hold a compass flat and level with the ground. All right. If you have it too high up, the needle is going to touch the bottom. If you have it too angled like this, the needle is going to be touching the ceiling. It's not going to have free movement. It has to be sitting level. All right. So explain that. If I'm underneath the globe, if this is call this the globe, if I'm underneath here in Australia and the North Pole's up the top, then wouldn't my compass need to be pointing through the Earth? Explain that. Doesn't make any sense. Compasses alone debunk this bullcrap lie of heliocentrism. Motion. There is absolutely no detectable motion whatsoever. There are a stack of experiments done in the 19th century. Michelson, Morley, I think Michelson, Gale, Sagnac and Gale. There's heaps. And they all proved that the Earth is motionless. And a few of those were not people that were geocentrists. They were trying to prove the heliocentric model. They weren't trying to debunk it. They were trying to prove the heliocentric model because they believed in it. And then they came to the obvious conclusion that there is no motion. The only one that you can that people point to is Foucault's pendulum, which is the big pendulum that swings and it supposedly turns and turns and turns, and it's absolute nonsense, right? Why is it nonsense? Well, during eclipses, those things have been known to actually change direction. So are you telling me during eclipse that the spin of the Earth just reverses? Nonsense. That would have to be something to do with electromagnetism, changing the direction there, is what I would say, because the luminaries above us are electromagnetic. They're not. It's not a big ball of gas and some dusty rock. That's absolute nonsense. And we'll get to that. I'm going to do like smaller episodes on all of these things, because there's the sun and the moon. To me, they go east to west, both of them. Right? If I use my eyes and logic, I see them go east to west, and they both look about the same size in the sky. All right? So apparently we're told one's 400 times further away, and it happens to be 400 times bigger, so they look the same size. Has anybody ever heard of Occam's razor? The simplest answer is usually the correct one, right? They're both the same size because they're both the same size. Or they both look the same size because they're both the same size. They both go east to west in the sky, or appear to go east to west in the sky, because they both go east to west in the sky. If you believe in the heliocentric model, the moon goes the opposite way. But because we spin faster than it, it appears to go east to west. It's just exactly how it looks. It just goes east to west in the sky, and they're about the same size. The stars are not all ridiculously large suns in distant galaxies. That's nonsense. The stars and sun look completely different. All right? So to tell me they're the same thing, you must have rocks in your head, because that's not what I see. I see all the stars, they look all around about the same size. Okay? So supposedly some are millions upon billions of light years away, and they just happen to be even bigger to compensate for why they all look the same. Or isn't it easier that they're all just about the same size and a similar luminosity, because they're all the same bloody thing? They're not freaking suns in distant galaxies. It's just ludicrous. While we're on the subject of stars, Polaris, fixed star of the north. It's been fixed there for as long as we know, and all of the stars, all of the constellations and stars do concentric circles around them. You can go and watch time-lapse videos of these stars doing perfect concentric circles around the North Star Polaris. Now, if we were on a ball that was spinning on its axis and then on a tilt, right, and then going around the sun, and then that sun, because most people don't even know, that they'll ridicule me very quickly for believing this, but they don't even know their own model. So it's lunacy, because what I think Einstein said, it is the height of ignorance to ridicule something that you know nothing about, or something to that effect. To condemn something and ridicule it when you have no clue, you haven't done any research, is absolute ignorance. So most people, this is news to them when I give them this information. But spinning 1,000 miles an hour on its axis, spins around the sun, goes around the sun at 66,600 miles per hour. Then the sun is also moving through the Milky Way galaxy at approximately 500,000 miles an hour or something. And then the whole galaxy is also moving. So you've got 4 motions there. And you want to tell me that there's a fixed star? I can understand a fixed star if you just had one motion of spin. It would always be at the top. If you imagine a spinning top, there's going to be the top dead center is going to be continually there. But as soon as you add an extra motion in of going around the sun, well, that makes it harder to believe. But then if you also add 2 more motions, you've got the sun moving through the galaxy and then the whole galaxy moving as well. It's not logical. It's just not logical. And to hold on to that is absolutely a belief system. All right? So there's people that read a book and they tell you that it's the truth and the word, and that's all there is, and you have to trust that. There's no way to verify it. That book's called the Bible. A lot of people don't believe the Bible. All right? Now you've got the heliocentric model. There's no proof for it. You've got scientists that are on the payroll, essentially, and people that are duped and working from a faulty assumption because that's just what everybody believes, trying to come up with theories that fit that assertion. But it's an absolute assumption to start with. So how's that different? It's a religion. It's an absolute religion. So Yeah, Polaris absolutely debunks it. All of the star constellations. Also, Polaris has actually been. Everyone goes, oh, but you'd be able to see Polaris from anywhere on the plane, And it's like, well, actually, that's not true. Again, if you understand how your perspective works, the sky is gonna come down and meet, and there's gonna be a point of convergence. There have been reports of people having viewed Polaris from 2 or 3, 4 degrees. Actually, sorry, it was about 21. I think there was a report of about 21 degrees or 22 degrees south of the equator. But people frequently view it at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees south of the equator. So that shouldn't be possible. Venus is a good one. I'm 42 degrees south where we live in Tassie, and I've been about a month ago. I did I'll do a video on that, but Venus was really high in the sky, and I've crunched the numbers. I've crunched them several times, and I'm looking at this star, and I'm checking out the times that we should be able to view it for, and there is just absolutely no way that Venus should be viewable if we were a spinning ball, where Venus is closer. So if this is the Earth, and here's Venus, and the Sun's over here, Venus is closer to the Sun, all right? So as the Earth spins, if we're in darkness and it's night time, then we're facing away from the Sun, all right? And if Venus is closer, then you should not be able to see it at night time. There should only be a small window of time where you could see it, supposedly, which is called the greatest western elongation, I think they call it, where Venus is at its furthest western orbit, and you can still see it for a couple of hours into nighttime, after dark. But I've got evidence of it, and I'll do a whole video on this, just a separate video. But I've got Venus was viewable for it was 5 hours or something, which works out to be well over the supposed viewing angle that you would see, because the amount of rotation of the Earth, if you believe in that theory, would have equated to about 60 degrees of spin, and the greatest western elongation for this for Venus is about 46, 47 degrees. So there's nearly 15 degrees of I can still see that star when I shouldn't. So that's another point. Whilst we're on the subject of the sun and the moon, people claim that the moon is evidence of, lunar eclipses are evidence of the the Earth's rotundity, but it's not the case, because you can't mimic a curved shadow on a sphere by having a light source behind another sphere. It's not possible. If the moon was a flat disk and you had a sphere and then a sun, so if you get a torch, put a sphere and something flat, you could create a curved shadow. But if you have a sphere and a light source, it will create a straight shadow. The shadow of a ball onto a ball is not going to be a curved line. That's just common sense. You can replicate that. You can do science, which is repeatable, testable, and verifiable. So that's an easy experiment to do, and people use that as proof for rotundity, and it's not. It's actually proof of not rotundity. Also, if you do your research, you'll find, and not just conspiracy theorists or crazy people with weird notions, you will find in the public record for many, many observatories, you will find that the sun and moon were both visible above the horizon during a lunar eclipse. That proves that the sun and Earth and moon don't line up to cause a lunar eclipse. If they're both in the sky above the horizon, then the Earth isn't in the way of them. So it's not possible. Also, whilst we're on the subject of the sun and the moon, if you believe that the sun is reflecting light off the moon and onto Earth, then firstly, the moon landings would be bogus, because we see a lit up moon and they landed on a dusty rock. So is it lit up and reflecting light, or isn't it? Which one is it? So that doesn't make sense. But if you believe that the moon is just reflecting the sun's light, then it stands to reason that light source would have the same characteristics as that of the sun. But they don't. They're the opposite. Because, and just like most ancient cultures knew, that in this dualistic world where we have hot and cold and up and down, you have a sun and a moon which are opposite light sources. They are opposite energies. And the sun gives us heat and the moon gives us a cooling light. So if the sun were reflecting the light off the moon into us, it would offer the same characteristics. It would be the same type of heat and light, but it's not. So if you can test this, again, here's some science which is testable and repeatable and verifiable. You can get a thermometer and put it in, say, a glass of water and put it in the direct sunlight. So put it in direct sunlight and then have a shaded area and put a cup with a thermometer in the shaded area, in the shade of the sun. And in the direct sunlight, leave it there for, say, an hour. In the direct sunlight, that water will be one temperature, and in the sun shade, the water will be a lower temperature. Okay, that's easy to wrap your head around that. Okay, things in the direct sunlight are going to be hotter than things that are in the shade of the sunlight. Now, during the night, if you do the same experiment and have a glass of water with a thermometer in direct moonlight, and you have a glass of water with a thermometer in direct moon shade, you will find that the one in the moon shade is actually warmer than one in direct moonlight. Okay, so it doesn't have to be barricaded in, so you're like, oh, it was the wind cooling it down over there. You know, right next to each other, just a simple table or something that will do. Moonlight is cooling. It is it has completely different characteristics. The sunlight is regenerative and restorative, and the moonlight is putrefying. It will cause, a different set of phenomena. There's plenty of people who have done that in extensive research, and you can see what the differences are, but they are completely different energy sources, providing different type of light and heat. So that also debunks this silly notion that the sun reflects light off the moon and onto Earth. Whilst we're on the subject of the sun and the moon, people always talk about the moon and its gravitational pull. Right, okay, gravity is nonsense, and I'll get to that in a second. All right, so you need to get rid of the word gravity from your vocabulary because it's stupid. The moon is not held in orbit by gravity. All right, we don't also, and we'll get to this, but we don't have like a flat disk in amongst all these planets and the sun, and it's all happening the way they say. It's all nonsense. We just have a fixed stationary plane, and all of the luminaries rotate above our heads. Okay. Again, if you're scoffing at that, I mean, I'm sure if you were scoffing at this sort of stuff, you probably wouldn't be watching by now. You'd have long ago, you would have clicked on the little red cross and gone and found the world's funniest cat videos or something. So the moon is not like, okay. So if you believe in the heliocentric model and you think that the moon is offering some sort of gravitational effect on the Earth whilst the Earth is pulling on the moon, and that's how we get tides, because that's generally the accepted belief, is that we have tides due to moon's gravity, then you've got to ask some questions about that. All right, and some of the questions would be, how many times do you see the moon every day? You see it approximately once per day. Sometimes it's during the day, sometimes it's during the night. All right, but you see it about once. You never see it twice. You never see it no times in a 24-hour period. You'll only ever see it once in a 24-hour period. All right. So why are there two tides? Why do we have high tides on the opposite side of the Earth to where the moon supposedly is, if you believe in this heliocentric model? When you've got the globe, you've got the moon up, say, up this side, and then down here you've got a high tide. Doesn't make sense. Why don't lakes have tides? You might have like a 1 centimetre difference in a high tide or low tide on a lake. Some of the largest lakes in the world, like Lake Michigan, there's no tides. But seas have tides, and they vary greatly. It doesn't matter where the moon is. So that should wake some people up. That should be like an alarm bell going, oh, yeah, maybe that's not right. Okay, space. How does space work? You've got a vacuum of space, and you've got a high pressure system, which is Earth. So you show me one experiment that I can do for myself that shows that I can have a vacuum next to a non-vacuum, and they're not going to equilibrate. So if I get a can of anything and I pierce the can, it's going to piss out until the outside and the inside are equilibrated. So that doesn't make any sense at all. People go, oh, it's gravity. Again, gravity doesn't exist. Gravity, it holds the particles in and the dense particles, and then they sort of flutter out. Well, at some point, everything's going to equilibrate. It's not just going to dissipate out forever. There has to be a point where you've got pressure and no pressure. All right. Otherwise, it all equilibrates. It's just nonsense. So that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. Gravity. Since we're talking about gravity does not exist. You can explain anything that gravity can do here on Earth because bodies are rotating around one another. That only happens supposedly in space. So there is no verifiable test here on Earth. So to me, that is pseudoscience. If I can't test and repeat something for myself or in a controlled setting with other people, if that is not a testable, repeatable experiment, then it is pseudoscience. So you have one or two agencies around the world, or space agencies, more than one or two, but space agencies are the gatekeepers of being able to test for this because no, you can't. Gravity only works on that's what pulls everything to the center, but you can't view things orbiting unless you go to space. It only happens on a planetary scale. Well, that's nonsense. If it's not scalable and testable and repeatable and verifiable, it's pseudoscience. There should be a test that we can do to prove gravity, but there isn't. What I can prove is density and buoyancy, and the properties of them explain everything that we view here on Earth in your objective reality can be explained by density and buoyancy. I was cooking with some eggs the other day, and I put them in the water, and one sunk, and I was like, yeah, that's good. One floated, and I thought, oh, that's a rotten egg. And I thought, here's a simple, a simple way to prove the properties of density and buoyancy how to explain everything and not gravity. So I got scales out and I found another egg that weighed exactly the same as my rotten egg. So they were both 61 grams, and I did a video on this. I'll do a separate video on this. But they both looked about the same shape. They're an egg shape. They were pretty similar, and they both weighed 61 grams. And the theory of gravity says that it's distance and mass. That's it. Distance and mass. Okay. So I put them both, I weighed them both, checked, on the video, you can see them both 61, put them in the thing, one sunk and one floated, right? How do you explain that if gravity is a thing? You can't. You can explain it with density and buoyancy. And density, anything that's more dense than the medium in which surrounds it, if it's more dense than the medium that surrounds it, it will go down. And if it's less dense, as in there are more buoyant forces on that thing, it will go up. Right? So density, the medium that surrounds it will determine up or down. Okay, there is always a buoyant force. Air has a buoyant force, and anything that's dropped in air will accelerate downwards 9.81 meters per second squared. It's not gravity; it's just density and the buoyant forces that surround the object that it's in. The higher up you go, air is less dense. So it's exactly what you would see if you use density and buoyancy. It's not gravity. Oh, it's just because they're further away and so it has less pull. Yeah, that way. It's density and buoyancy. It's so easy to explain. So gravity is nonsense. Sun's rays. I see sun's rays being divergent all the time. Middle of the day even. You just see a cloud breaking up the light and you see sun's rays like this. Sun's rays, if the sun were 93 million miles away, like we're told, would be parallel always. You wouldn't get divergent rays, right? You would get parallel rays right to Earth. You wouldn't get a cloud and all of a sudden the rays go... You only get that if you've got a much closer, more local sun that's nothing like what they're telling us, all right? I've got to pause it there because I've got a few things I need to do, but we will resume hopefully very soon. Apologise about that. So continuing on, Sun's rays being divergent is where we left off. The seasons don't make sense on a globe. So the seasons, people always go, oh, the seasons make a lot of sense on the globe. Well, not really, actually. If you were to take the northern hemisphere, you have, when it's winter there, the sun is supposedly closer. So if the orbit around the sun, if you believe in this model, is sort of elliptical, and so it's actually closer in. This is what's ludicrous about it. It's actually supposedly closer in the northern hemisphere's winter. The Earth is closer to the sun, so that doesn't add up at all. On a stationary plane with the sun that goes around, it actually moves to the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer as it goes around. So it makes smaller circles, then it makes larger circles. The larger circles is when it's summer in the southern hemisphere, and the smaller circles towards the centre of the plane is when it's summer in the northern hemisphere. So the seasons actually make a lot more sense on a plane. And if you look at the weather patterns as well, weather patterns on a globe model, you see all these weird shapes of the weather patterns. On a flat plane, if you map those weather patterns, you always just find that the wind is moving in big circles, basically. So it's just the way the pressure systems work. So it actually all works out better on a flat Earth. So the satellites, people go, oh, but satellites. Well, it's all ground-based towers, right? That's why they're putting towers up everywhere. If they had all these satellites up there doing everything, why do they need to put all the ground-based towers up all the time? All right. What satellites are helium balloons. If you go and look at, you'll find that NASA and Google are the two largest purchasers of helium, and you can go and watch a real satellite launch. They have satellite launches in like Antarctica. You have a big truck, and it pulls along and gets this helium balloon, and then they detach the helium balloon, and it's got all the solar panels and things like that on there. That's what your satellite is. It's a helium balloon that hovers very high up. But it doesn't go to space and orbit around they just go up and they do circles around, or possibly even stationary. I'm not sure whether they move or not, but and people go, oh, I see satellites all the time. You see the lights moving in the sky. No, they're wandering stars. If you think you can see a satellite from the distances that they are, and it just happens to be a very similar source of light than the stars, you're just fooling yourself. You're absolutely fooling yourself. Oh, great! I love this one. So if you think about the Earth going around the sun, all right, and we've got a moon that's going around us as we go around the sun, that moon is going to have to speed up. All right. So if you've got the sun and the Earth is coming around, and the moon is also going, it's going to have to speed up, all right, to get around it. Think of a G-Whizzer ride. You've got, as it comes on the inside track, it goes really fast, but then it seems to almost feel like it's stationary, and that goes really fast, all right? So the moon would have to be doing that. There's no way around that. The moon would have to be doing that if you believe in this model. It would have to speed up on its outside track, and then slow down on the inside, speed back up to catch up, just to stay in direct relative motion to the Earth. All right, so it's ludicrous. Where are we? Yeah, well, there's some of the main ones. I've got a lot more, but there's some of the main ones. Some of the biggest, easiest points to sort of deal with. But everywhere you look, you'll find it. It's really easy. And when people always bring up, people's main arguments against ships over the horizon is a classic one, and we've debunked that. That's the way your perspective works. They say they can see the curve from a plane. Again, debunked that. It's nonsense. It's just curved windows. And if it were curving, then it should be curving down away from you. You shouldn't see the horizon at your eye line on both sides of the plane. Seeing the curve on video footage, again, you're dealing with GoPro cameras, fish-eyed lens cameras that distort the vision. You get people always bring up, but everything else in space is a sphere. Why is Earth any different? Well, I'm not. This is the thing. People think that you're saying, oh no, like Earth is definitely flat, but the rest of it's still real. No, I'm saying that the whole lot is a load of junk. And there's no proof of it. If you and I were to go and get an amateur telescope, an analog telescope, and zoom in on these things, you just see discs in the sky. You don't see sphericity. You do not see a ball. You see a disc. We see in 2 dimensions. You don't see a 3D ball up there. The only time you see that is when NASA give that to you. I think they've got some of these digital telescopes now. They program them so that they know if you're looking at, say, Venus, it shows you the image of Venus they want you to see. But if you get an analog telescope, or if you get a really high-powered zoom camera and zoom in on these things, you'll just see that they are like energy sources. They're not suns in distant galaxies. It's lunacy. And the planets comes from the word planetas, which means wandering star. So all of the ancient cultures, which by the way built all sorts of magnificent structures that we could probably not build today, like the pyramids, we probably wouldn't be able to build it today. They built this on a foundation of knowledge that was to do with the Earth being a stationary plane. And all of these things line up with the stars. Right? They did that knowing that it was a stationary plane, not a spinning ball. And if it were a spinning ball, how would those things still be in alignment today? It's lunacy. If we're a spinning ball that goes around and round a sun, and then the sun moves, and then the whole galaxy moves, and these stars were all distant suns from different galaxies, you would have to imagine that they also have their own movements. So it's not possible. The only way it's possible is if something is fixed. And that's us. It has to be that way. It's illogical to think it can be any other way. It's been proven for a very long time. But anyway, so the argument is, why would everything? Well, no. Again, they're all disks in space. That's all we see: disks or light sources or energy sources. There's the pictures that you see, like I bring up, and I'll do a video on this, but I bring up pictures all the time that NASA put out, and I put them into, I've got a paint program called paint.net, which is like the old Paint Shop Pro. It's like a clone of that. And there's a little button at the top, and you click on that and you go down to levels and you drop the levels down. It brings all the colour levels down, and as you get right down, you see like boxes around these spherical planets where it's like they've copy and pasted it in. I'll do a video on them, like heaps of them. All of the supposed legitimate photos. You see it on the supposed moon landing. You watch the Earth rise from the moon, and you just freeze frame it in the video. So it's not like a doctored photo. You freeze frame their video that they're telling you is real, and just pop it over into this paint program. You'll see a box around the supposed Earth, and then a lot of their pictures that they put out. So this actually goes to the other point. The other one is pics from space. Everyone always talks about pictures from space. They're all fake. All of them are fake. And they tell you that they're composite images. And the supposed very few real ones, like I said, I've debunked them by putting them into Paint Shop Pro, and you can see the little boxes around them. So it's lunacy. A lot of the time you see the Earth and you'll see duplicated cloud formations, and you'll see from year to year, like the size of like North America is really big one year and really small the other. It's like, well, which one is the lie? Or it's logical to assume that it's all lies. So people bring up, like I said, the Foucault's pendulum. The way they work is with it's hard to start them without a lateral bias to start with. But like I said, in eclipses, solar eclipses, they've been known to change direction. Some of these things stop, some of them go the wrong way, so it's absolutely not proof of a spinning ball whatsoever. And if you were to claim that it were, if you just scrap all of the evidence that says it's not and just go, okay, let's think it through. So if I can put a pendulum up and have it swing back and forth and it turns slowly, and that's proving that there's an Earth spinning underneath my feet, then you should also you would have to agree that I can float up, I can rise up in a helicopter and hover there whilst the Earth turns around under me, and then I can lower myself in a few hours and be in a different place. But that doesn't happen. And they go, oh, but the atmosphere goes with you. Well, which is it? Does the atmosphere go with you and everything goes with it for the helicopter or for the pendulum? You can't have it both ways. And also, the speed of the spin is different depending on where you are. So up the top, it's going to be a slower rate of spin. As you get to the equator line, it's a really fast spin, and as you get south, it's going to be slower again. So where you set up your Foucault's pendulum experiment should also dictate the speed of that. Realistically, if you're on the North Pole, yeah, it would turn under you. If you're on the equator, it wouldn't. So it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny. People will say, well, where's the edge? Is there an edge can you fall off the edge of a lake? No, because there's a lake it's got its water held in by a bank of some descript. And we have a bank. It's called Antarctica. It goes around the outside. And in some places it's a big wall, in other places it's just... Antarctica is actually the highest continent on Earth. The whole thing is far higher than any other continent. So it holds all the waters in. So where's the edge? Where's the edge of space? It's a silly question. Nobody knows. We can't go there, and there's an Antarctic treaty that turned people around and sent people back. The only treaty that's been in existence for so long, when supposedly the whole world's at war... just about. This country is at war with that country. You'd think one of these countries that hate all the other countries would just go and break the treaty and do whatever they want, So it's nonsense. It's all protected areas, and that's because they can't let people know the truth, because then they'll see the prison. People don't want to. They don't want people to see the prison. Why would they lie? Well, it's to hide everything from you. To put you in a prison world where there's no escape. But there's most likely, as far as I could probably tell, there's probably more land beyond Antarctica. So they're hiding that, they're hiding resources, they're hiding your true connection to nature. Because there is, I don't know what it is, I'm agnostic, but there is some sort of creator. That's only logical because we live on a creation and we are created. We have life inside of us. It's called your soul, your spirit. There's truth to all of this. We live in a materialistic world because they've indoctrinated that in, and that's what a big part of this globe deception is. It's teaching you that you're a speck of dust that just happened to come about in some cosmic bang, and life somehow randomly started, and you're the result of a fish growing legs and walking on land and screwing something else, and they turned into some bloody bird or dinosaur, and then those things had sex and had a monkey for a son, and then the son, and it's and you're related to a banana. If you go back far enough, it's just nonsense. And that whole deception, it all the evolution deception and the globe deception and history, all the lies that they teach us, get you to this point of you live, you work, and you die, and that's it, and there's nothing else. Don't look anywhere else, don't think about anything else, don't realise that you're more powerful than you believe. It's to hide all of that from you. It's to hide spirituality. It's to hide more land, other races of beings, other... all the resources they have. It's just a complete control mechanism. There couldn't be that many people in it. Well, there can. If you've woken up to all of this don't want to use the wrong terms here, this hullabaloo about health scares and whatever, and you realise that there's a lot of people in on the on that, then it's not a far-fetched idea to think that there's a few people at the top that are perpetrating the idea, and once you get brainwashed people that believe it, propagating that and studying with the notion that that's it and not realizing that they've made a faulty assumption, then you get this world that's completely brainwashed. And it doesn't really take everybody to do it. Your teacher isn't in on it. The scientist that thinks he's doing this, that, or the other, measuring, looking through a telescope and he's got this assumption that they're millions of miles away, so he's making the data fit what he thinks to be true. People don't go back to the basics and question everything. When you're a kid, you know that it's nonsense. But you have an authority figure that's your teacher telling you, no, this is it. And they've shown you a globe from the first day you get to school, pretty much. There's a globe in the classroom, and they're teaching you all of this nonsense. And the globe on the TV. Every time you watch a movie with Universal, the big globe spins up on there, all CGI. It's all cartoons. NASA, here's another why the lie. NASA get $68 million a day for 2021. It's $25 billion was their budget. That's $68 million a day. There's 68 million reasons every single day to lie to you. They just give you cartoons and nonsense. It's absolute lunacy. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm going to do some more videos on this because I'm under the pump. I've got a few things to do. But I'm going to do some more videos on this. I'm going to break down and do little sections. But this is a big topic, and I know if you've made it this far, then you must be a little bit open-minded at least. But surely that's raised some questions for you, and it's worth your time and research. Because, like I said, I don't believe that the globe is a load of crap. I know that the globe is a load of crap. It's absolute nonsense. And more people are waking up to this. And if you think that everyone that's waking up to this is just a loony moron, then you're fooled, because the people that wake up to this have done a lot more research than anyone that isn't clued onto this. I can guarantee that anyone that's got the wealth of knowledge about all the lies that the globe deception brings, if they're well versed, I guarantee you they've put a lot of hours in figuring it out. I know I have. I clued onto it as soon as it was presented to me. I had some questions. I went, wow, and within a very short period, I was like, oh wow, that's undeniable. But I just wanted to delve right in and know everything. It was like this new subject. It's like, oh my god, wow. And the more and more I look, and I'm not the kind of person that's using cognitive bias here. I'm not like, I want to see that, therefore I'll see it. This subject, it makes you the subject of ridicule from other people. That's not, like, I didn't wake up one day and go, yeah, I'm going to come up with some crackpot theory or jump on this bandwagon because all my family members will hate me and cause arguments. But it just is that way. There's no other explanation other than the globe is a load of bunk and the Earth is a stationary, immovable plane. Anyway, if you can wrap your head around that, then you're doing really good. And it's going to make things a lot easier for you in moving forward and realising that you're more than what you've been led to believe, and how history plays, what we can actually see when we see through the lies of history and see what potentially has happened. It makes a lot more sense on a flat, stationary Earth. Anyway, I'll do some more videos on this subject because I absolutely love this subject. It's one of my favourites, and it's undeniable. So thanks for tuning in. Have a good one.